Welcome, chosen ones, to this transformative journey. If you've ever felt like you're waiting for something bigger to happen in your life, then you're exactly where you need to be. In today's video, we're diving deep into divine timing, spiritual breakthroughs, and the incredible transformation that awaits you. The universe has aligned this moment for you right now, and everything you've been praying for is closer than you think. So, if you're ready to step into your divine purpose, to unlock the mysteries of your true potential, then make sure you stay with us through the entire video. It's not by accident that you're here. God's plan for your life is unfolding now, and you're about to witness miracles. The world, it seemed, had fallen into a quiet anticipation, the kind of stillness that only precedes a significant shift. In the quiet of the early morning, or the silence of a long-awaited night, the chosen ones stood at the edge of their life, unsure of how to take the next step. The struggle had been real. They had been through seasons of delay, unanswered prayers, and frustrations that seemed to last longer than they could bear. It felt like a lifetime of waiting, of asking, and never receiving. Yet, even in those moments of silence, when the answers seemed elusive, something extraordinary was quietly taking place behind the scenes. God had heard every whisper of their heart. He had seen their perseverance, their tears, their quiet endurance in the face of adversity. Though the world around them had been a whirlwind of uncertainty, God had been at work, orchestrating a divine plan in the unseen. They had no idea, but everything was about to change. It was time for the breakthrough, but this wasn't just any ordinary moment in their life. This wasn't just another phase of waiting for a prayer to be answered, another attempt to push through. No, this was different. This was divine timing, and God's timing had a precision that could not be ignored. The breakthrough was not something that would happen in a distant tomorrow. It wasn't something that would take months, weeks, or even days. The breakthrough was happening within hours. As the words hung in the air, there was an undeniable shift in the atmosphere. There was a stirring, a gentle pull within the spirit of the chosen one, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. They felt it deep within their soul, a knowing, an assurance that this was no longer a season of waiting. This was a season of receiving. For years, they had been praying, hoping, and dreaming. They had carried the burden of unanswered prayers, of unfulfilled desires, and the weight of uncertainty. Each prayer felt like a small candle flickering in the darkness, but never burning bright enough to bring light to their circumstances. But now, everything was about to shift. God was moving behind the scenes, orchestrating the events that would lead to their breakthrough. And though the world was still, they could feel the divine plan unfolding in real time. It wasn't just about waiting for something external to change. It was about the internal shift that was happening inside them. The waiting had been long, but the moment was drawing near. The first step in this divine breakthrough was preparation. Preparation to receive. The chosen one had been waiting, yes, but now it was time to prepare spiritually, emotionally, and mentally for the change that was coming. They had been prepared for this moment without even knowing it. Every challenge they had faced, every tear they had shed, every time they had endured, when the world seemed to be silent, it was all preparation. But preparation, they realized, was not passive. It required action, alignment, and most importantly, faith. Faith in God's timing. Faith in the unseen, the invisible work that had already been set in motion. Faith that even when it seemed like nothing was happening, God was moving behind the curtain, aligning everything to come together at the right moment. This was not just a time to wait passively for something to fall into their lap. It was a time to step into the divine moment that was unfolding. The breakthrough was no longer something they had to wait for, it was arriving in real time. But, to experience it, they had to align with it. They had to embrace it fully, step into it with open arms, and trust that what had been promised was now on its way. The message was clear. God's timing is perfect. There was no more wondering when the breakthrough would come. The waiting was over. It was happening. Now. Right now. And the only thing left for the chosen one to do was prepare their heart, mind, and spirit to receive. Faith would be the key that unlocked the door to the transformation. It wasn't about how much they had worked, how much they had prayed, or how many obstacles they had overcome. It was about aligning their faith with the divine plan that had already been set in motion. It was time to believe. They had spent years wondering when their time would come. When would the door open? When would the promise finally come to pass? The waiting had seemed endless, and doubt had crept in. But here, now, in this sacred moment, God was saying, "It is happening now." And as the chosen ones stood on the precipice of this breakthrough, the world around them felt different. The air felt charged with possibility. They knew, deep in their heart, that the breakthrough wasn't a distant dream anymore. It was real. It was tangible. It was here. The breakthrough wasn't coming tomorrow, or next week, or in a few months. It was happening within hours. And the only thing standing in the way of the chosen one fully stepping into it was their faith. Faith would be the bridge between where they were now and where God was leading them. But faith required more than just belief. It required action. It required alignment. The breakthrough wasn't just something to be passively hoped for. It was something to be embraced. It was already on its way, and the only thing left was for the chosen one to step forward in trust, to believe in God's timing and open themselves to what was about to come. This moment was not about waiting for something external to change. It was about aligning their spirit with the divine will. The breakthrough was happening because of everything the chosen one had endured, because of their prayers, because of their faith, because they had held on when everyone else might have given up. This breakthrough was the culmination of everything they had walked through, and it was happening now. In the stillness of that moment, the chosen one knew it was time to step into their divine appointment. The breakthrough wasn't coming in the future, it was coming now, and the only thing left was for them to align themselves with it, to prepare their heart, to prepare their mind, and to prepare their spirit to receive it. The breakthrough had been set in motion. The moment of transformation was upon them. All that was needed now was the faith to receive what God had already promised. As the chosen ones stood on the precipice of their transformation, a wave of realization began to wash over them. The message that God had been speaking through every whisper of their heart, every quiet moment of reflection, was becoming clear. This was not a time for doubt. This was not a time to shrink back in fear. This was the moment that had been promised, and it was unfolding right now, before their very eyes. The waiting had ended, and in its place stood a divine invitation, a call to move forward. The breakthrough was not waiting for perfect conditions or for some magical moment to happen. It was happening right now, and the chosen one was invited to step fully into it. God had been at work, moving behind the scenes, aligning the forces of the universe to bring everything into place. And now, everything was prepared for the chosen one to step into a new reality. The transformation wasn't just about changing external circumstances, it was about shifting their inner world. Their faith had become the key, the very thing that would open the door to their breakthrough. But the divine announcement wasn't just about receiving, it was about action. It was time to act in faith, to believe that the impossible was about to become possible. The breakthrough wasn't coming tomorrow, it was arriving today. And to experience it fully, the chosen one had to open themselves completely to God's plan. No more second guessing. No more waiting. God was moving on their behalf, and the only thing left for them to do was align spiritually, mentally, and emotionally with what was coming. The breakthrough wasn't just a distant hope anymore. It was real, and the time had come for them to step into it with full faith and trust. As they prepared to step into this divine moment, the chosen one began to feel the weight of what this meant. This wasn't a small change. This wasn't just another prayer being answered. This was the fulfillment of a promise, the culmination of everything they had longed for, hoped for, and prayed for. It was the manifestation of God's will in their life. And it was happening right now. The breakthrough, as overwhelming as it felt, was not going to be something that would overwhelm them. Instead, it was going to be a lifting of the weight that had burdened them for so long. Every moment of struggle, every season of waiting, every unanswered prayer had built to this point. And now, in this very moment, everything was about to change. It was important to note, this was not an ordinary breakthrough. This was a divine breakthrough. And divine breakthroughs didn't just happen by chance. They were set in motion by God's divine timing, His perfect plan, and the preparation of the chosen one's heart. The chosen one had been prepared for this moment. Whether they realized it or not, they had been molded through the trials, strengthened through the waiting, and built to handle the miracle that was coming. This is where the faith comes in. The breakthrough had already been set in motion. The doors had already been opened. The divine intervention was already happening. But for it to manifest fully, the chosen one had to embrace it, to believe in the promise, to trust that what had been promised was already unfolding in real time. God had already moved. He had already aligned the events, made the preparations, and set the timing in place. Now, it was up to the chosen one to align themselves with what was already happening. No more wondering, no more questioning. The time for receiving had come. It was time to let go, to release any remaining doubt or fear that had held them back in the past. No more hesitating, no more holding back. The breakthrough was not waiting for the chosen one to be perfect. It was not waiting for them to have everything figured out. The breakthrough was coming regardless of what they saw in front of them. And the only thing left was for the chosen one to step forward in faith. This divine moment required courage. It required boldness. It required the chosen one to believe with every fiber of their being that the impossible was about to unfold before their very eyes. The manifestation was not a distant event. It was here, in this very moment, and they had to be ready to receive it. With every step of faith, the chosen one was moving closer to the divine promise. Every doubt they released, every fear they let go of, brought them closer to the manifestation of their breakthrough. God had already decreed it. It was done. All that remained was for them to step into the manifestation and receive the blessings. Faith was no longer just a hope. It was a certainty. The breakthrough was happening, and nothing could stop it. The season of struggle was over. The season of waiting was over. This was the time for receiving. But there was a catch. The breakthrough was not an isolated event. It wasn't just about the chosen one receiving a blessing and walking away. No, the breakthrough was part of something larger, part of a divine purpose that was unfolding not just in their life, but for those around them as well. This was bigger than them. The transformation that was taking place was meant to not only elevate them, but to also impact their relationships, their community, their work, and the lives of others they touched. The breakthrough wasn't a solo event. It was a ripple that would touch the lives of everyone around them. And God had orchestrated it in such a way that they would be positioned to influence others with the blessings they were about to receive. The chosen one wasn't just stepping into a new season for themselves. They were stepping into a new assignment. They were being called not just to enjoy their breakthrough, but to share it. To walk in the new season with the understanding that their breakthrough was a gift that would multiply, touching those around them, and radiating out in waves of transformation. Now, the most crucial part, the chosen one had to believe. They had to believe that this was not just a one-time event, but the beginning of a continuous flow of blessings, alignment, and transformation. They had to believe that the breakthrough wasn't just for them, it was for the world. God had given them the tools to create something far greater than they could imagine. The time to embrace this new season was now. It was not a time to wait any longer. The season of transformation had already begun, and the only way forward was to step in with boldness and confidence. As they prepared to take this bold step, the chosen one had to trust that what had been promised was already unfolding. They didn't have to understand every step of the process. They didn't have to have all the answers. All they needed was to trust, to align with God's divine timing, and to move forward in faith. Their breakthrough was not only a gift, it was an invitation. An invitation to align with God's plan and to walk in the fullness of what He had in store for them. They were not walking alone. God was with them, leading them every step of the way. And so, the chosen ones stood tall, in faith and confidence, fully aligned with the divine plan. This was their moment. This was their time to step into a new season, one that was filled with promise, blessings, and transformation. No more waiting, no more wondering. It was time to step into the breakthrough that was already unfolding. After the divine announcement, the world around the chosen one seemed to quiet. A deep, almost imperceptible shift had occurred, and with it came an unmistakable awareness the divine signal had been given. It wasn't something loud or overpowering, but something subtle. It was the kind of stirring that touched the soul, a feeling that could not be explained by logic or circumstance. It was as if the world itself had paused, just for a moment, allowing the chosen one to see what had always been there but hidden beneath the surface. The waiting, the longing, and the struggles of the past were now shifting into something new, something beautiful. The season of delay was over, and in its place came divine movement. The breakthroughs, the opportunities, the answers to long-awaited prayers, everything had been set into motion. But now, the chosen one had to prepare themselves, not only mentally, but spiritually, to fully step into what God had ordained. And for that, the signs were essential. At first, the signs were subtle, small moments that felt like coincidences, but they happened too often to be dismissed. It started with the numbers. Repeating numbers on clocks, license plates, street signs, and even in the random digits that appeared throughout the day, seemed to follow the chosen one wherever they went. These numbers weren't just random. They held meaning. They were messages, divine nudges, signaling that the shift had already begun. God was speaking directly through these patterns, confirming that this was not merely coincidence, but divine timing. The numbers didn't always make sense at first, but the more the chosen one noticed, the clearer the message became. Numbers like 1111, 555, and 222 became frequent companions, showing up just when needed, at moments of uncertainty. It wasn't just the time on the clock, it was everywhere. The numbers kept appearing like a trail, guiding them toward the manifestation of their destiny. But the signs weren't limited to numbers alone. There was an undeniable feeling of synchronicity in the air. It was as if the universe itself had conspired to bring everything into alignment. People they hadn't seen in years suddenly crossed their path. Long-forgotten opportunities resurfaced out of nowhere. The doors that had once been shut tight began to open, almost as if someone had unlocked them just for them. The mundane, the ordinary, was being illuminated with the light of divine purpose. The chosen one could feel it in their spirit. Everything was shifting. They had been moving through a season of waiting, but now they were on the verge of stepping into something entirely new. It was no longer just about waiting for a breakthrough to happen. The breakthrough was already underway, and it was being guided by something far greater than their own efforts. There was more to it, though. The signs weren't just external, they were internal as well. The chosen one felt a stirring deep within their heart, an excitement, a calling, a sense of purpose that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. It was a feeling that defied logic, a knowing that they were exactly where they needed to be, in the right place, at the right time. Every part of their being, from their soul to their mind, was aligning with the new direction that was opening before them. But this wasn't just a passive waiting period. The signs and synchronicities were not random events. They were divine signals meant to draw the chosen one closer to the manifestation of their breakthrough. They were being shown that they were not alone in this journey. God was not distant or silent. He was working behind the scenes, orchestrating events in their favor. And then came the manifestation portal. This portal wasn't something that could be touched or seen in a physical sense. It wasn't a door or a window in the conventional sense, but rather a spiritual opening that occurred during the sacred hours of the evening. A time when the world was still, and the soul could finally hear the whispers of God. The manifestation portal opened in these quiet, reflective moments when everything else had faded away, and the chosen one could clearly hear the call of the divine. In this space, the rules of the physical world seemed to bend, and the impossible began to feel possible. This was the time when God granted the chosen one the ability to manifest their desires not just in a theoretical sense, but in a very real, tangible way. This was the time when emotional healing, physical restoration, and the shaping of future reality could happen through intention and faith. The chosen one was being invited into a new realm, one where they could co-create with God. This wasn't about waiting for something to happen to them. It was about stepping into their divine authority and partnering with God to bring about the changes they had long hoped for. Whether they desired love, financial freedom, success, or healing, this was the time to manifest those desires into reality. At first, it felt like a dream, too good to be true. But the more the chosen one focused on these divine signals, the more they realized that this was not a fantasy. It was the reality of divine intervention. God was granting them the power to shape their own future, not through force or manipulation, but through faith and intention. This was a divine partnership, God providing the opportunity, and the chosen one being willing to step forward in faith. They were not just passively waiting anymore. They were stepping into the role of a co-creator in the divine plan. God had always been the ultimate creator, but now, in this sacred moment, He was inviting the chosen one to work with Him, to shape their life with the power of intention and belief. In this space, the rules of time and space didn't apply. The manifestation portal was a sacred opening where thoughts and intentions became real, where dreams could be turned into reality through divine guidance. It was the perfect time to create, to speak life, to believe in the possibilities that were being set before them. For the first time, the chosen one began to understand the power of their own faith. It wasn't just about wishing for something to happen. It was about believing it could, trusting that God had already made the way, and stepping into the portal of divine possibility. The manifestation portal was the gateway to a new life, one filled with opportunities and blessings that had once felt out of reach. But to step into this new reality, the chosen one had to first acknowledge the power of faith. Faith wasn't just something to believe in abstractly, it was something to live out daily. In this portal, faith became the vehicle that would carry the chosen one to the life they had always dreamed of. It was the bridge between the present and the future, the gap between where they were and where they wanted to be. As the manifestation portal began to open, the chosen one felt a sense of power within them. This was not just about receiving blessings, it was about creating them. The portal was a divine space where spiritual forces aligned with their desires, and their intentions could shape the future. The world had always seemed like an unpredictable place, but now, everything felt different. The divine plan was no longer something that was happening to them from afar. It was something that they were actively participating in. And as they stepped into this divine moment, they knew that the breakthrough they had been praying for was already on its way. All they had to do was step into the portal of faith and intention, and trust that everything would unfold in its perfect time. As the chosen one stepped deeper into the manifestation portal, the air around them seemed to shift. It was as if the laws of nature had subtly bent, aligning with the divine flow of the universe. The stillness of the evening, the sacred hours when the world slowed down, became a perfect backdrop for what was about to unfold. Every step they took within this sacred space brought them closer to the manifestation of their deepest desires. The world outside had faded away. The noise, the distractions, the chaos, all of it seemed distant, irrelevant. In this moment, there was only the connection between the chosen one and the divine. They were standing at the crossroads of the physical and the spiritual, where intention and faith could shape the world around them. This was a space of creation. In this portal, God had given them the power to manifest. It wasn't about forcing reality to bend to their will. It was about aligning their will with God's plan and using the divine power that had been granted to them. Faith was the vehicle through which they would navigate this portal. Intention was the tool that would shape their future reality. This was their opportunity to co-create with God, to manifest their desires not by mere wishful thinking, but through the power of belief. The chosen one closed their eyes for a moment, feeling the immense presence of God surrounding them. There was a deep sense of peace, a knowing that they were exactly where they were meant to be. All the doubts, fears, and questions that had plagued them in the past seemed to dissolve, replaced by a clear sense of purpose and direction. It was in this moment of stillness that they realized how far they had come. Every trial they had endured, every obstacle they had overcome, had led them to this precise moment in time. They were not just receiving a breakthrough, they were stepping into their divine purpose. This was the moment when they could manifest the life they had always dreamed of, not as passive recipients, but as active participants in the divine plan. They had longed for love, for connection, for the relationships that would nourish and support them. They had prayed for financial freedom, for the ability to step out of struggle and into abundance. They had sought healing, both physical and emotional. And now, they realized that this was their moment to align all of those desires with the divine. In the sacred space of the manifestation portal, faith was the key. But faith was not simply a matter of hoping for things to change. It was about trusting that the divine would fulfill the promises made. The chosen one had to step into this portal with the belief that what they desired had already been set into motion by God, and that they were now part of the manifestation process. The law of attraction wasn't simply about wishful thinking. It was about acting in faith, knowing that what was desired was already on its way. The first step was to release the doubts and fears that had held them back for so long. The breakthrough was no longer a distant dream. It was a reality waiting to unfold. The next step was to align their thoughts, their actions, and their beliefs with the divine plan. It was about stepping into this moment with the full knowledge that they were worthy of the blessings they sought, that God had prepared them for this very moment. God was inviting them to become co-creators, not by force or manipulation, but by faithful intention. The chosen one was being asked to trust in their ability to manifest their desires, knowing that this sacred space, the manifestation portal, was the divine doorway through which those desires would pass. The manifestation portal wasn't just about receiving, it was about creating. And the power to create was in the hands of the chosen one. But to harness that power, they had to trust, to believe that God had already provided everything they needed. This wasn't about forcing their dreams into existence. It was about aligning with what was already written in the stars, in the divine plan for their life. In this sacred space, the chosen one could feel the pull of the universe itself. The air around them was thick, with divine energy, with possibility, with the potential for transformation. And with every breath they took, the reality they had once imagined seemed to come closer. The manifestation of love, success, health, and abundance wasn't just a far-off dream, it was becoming real. As the chosen one focused their energy on manifesting their desires, they began to see that this portal wasn't a one-time opportunity, it was an ongoing invitation to co-create. The divine was not just waiting for them to passively receive, it was waiting for them to actively step in and participate. Their faith wasn't just about praying for something to happen. It was about becoming a vessel through which the divine could work. This realization was both empowering and humbling. The chosen one had spent so much time waiting, thinking that God's blessings were outside of their reach, that they had to wait for the divine to act on their behalf. But now they understood. God was already at work, and he was inviting them to step into the flow of divine creation. The manifestation portal wasn't just about personal gain. It wasn't just about manifesting material wealth or personal success. It was about aligning with God's will for their life, creating the life they were meant to live, and stepping into the abundance that had always been promised. As they stood in the center of this divine portal, the chosen one could feel the shift in their spirit. The breakthrough they had been waiting for wasn't just a personal victory, it was a divine calling. They were being called to manifest, not just for themselves, but for the world around them. The breakthrough was part of a larger divine plan, one that would ripple out to others, touching their lives, transforming their relationships, and creating a positive shift in the world. Now, the Chosen One understood. The manifestation portal was not just a personal space, it was a sacred intersection, where the divine and the human converged. It was a place where their faith, their intentions, and their trust could shape their future, and where the divine could work through them to bring about transformation. It was a divine partnership, one that required both belief and action, trust and surrender. As the Chosen One began to feel the divine energy flow through them, they knew this was just the beginning. The manifestation portal had opened for them, but now they had to step forward in faith. They had to believe that they could manifest the desires of their heart and trust that the universe, guided by divine hands, would respond in kind. As the night settled, a profound stillness enveloped the world. The busy, often chaotic energy of the day faded, leaving behind a quiet, sacred space. It was within this quiet that the Chosen One began to feel the first stirrings of something greater, something beyond the physical realm. The world around them was silent, but inside, there was a growing awareness, a sense that something was unfolding, something they could not yet fully comprehend. It was just past midnight, and the stillness of the hour held a sacred power. In the quiet of this time, they began to sense a shift, a subtle yet unmistakable pull, as if their spirit was being called to travel beyond the confines of the body. This was not a normal night. This was a night of spiritual awakening. Around 2 a.m., a moment unlike any other would take place. In the soft glow of the night, the Chosen One's consciousness began to shift, as if they were no longer bound by the physical body they had known so well. It was as though their soul had been set free, and they were soaring, unburdened by earthly limitations. They could feel themselves traveling, not through space, but through dimensions, into higher realms that were once hidden from their sight. In this state of spiritual travel, the Chosen One entered into what could only be described as a higher dimension, a realm of profound divine knowledge. It was as if they had stepped into a space where time and space no longer held dominion. The constraints of the physical world, the boundaries that had once seemed so real, began to dissolve. They were experiencing a glimpse of eternity, a taste of the divine wisdom that existed beyond the earthly realm. At first, it felt strange. There was a sense of weightlessness, as if they were floating in a vast expanse, no longer tethered to the familiar physical world. The sensation was both exhilarating and humbling. Every detail, every thought seemed to stretch out before them, clear and vivid, as if they were seeing the world from a higher perspective, one that was rich with clarity and understanding. As they traveled, the Chosen One began to notice something. Remarkable visions began to unfold before their eyes. These were not ordinary visions, but divine glimpses into the deeper layers of existence. Each vision carried profound meaning, offering insights into their purpose, their journey, and their place in the grand design of creation. They could see the intricate tapestry of life, each thread woven by the hands of the divine, each moment leading them closer to the fulfillment of their destiny. It was in this space that they encountered higher wisdom knowledge not available in the waking world, but accessible only in the sacred stillness of the night. They began to receive answers to questions that had lingered for years. Guidance, clarity, and wisdom flowed into their consciousness like a river, each piece falling into place, revealing a larger, more intricate plan than they could have ever imagined. In this space, the Chosen One realized that every decision, every challenge, every moment of waiting had served a purpose. They could see how each step, even the ones that felt like missteps at the time, had been divinely orchestrated. This knowledge was liberating. They could see their journey with a new clarity. The obstacles they had faced were not random. They were shaping them, preparing them for the very moment they were in now. The visions they experienced weren't just about the past. They were also about the future. As the spiritual travel deepened, the Chosen One saw glimpses of what was to come. These were not fleeting thoughts or imaginations. They were clear insights into their destiny. They saw the path unfolding before them, not in vague or abstract terms, but in vivid detail. The choices they would soon have to make, the opportunities they would encounter, the relationships that would shape their future, all of it was laid before them. In this higher state, the Chosen One could also see the connections between themselves and others. They understood the impact their decisions would have, not just on their own life, but on the lives of those around them. They were no longer isolated in their experience, they were part of a larger cosmic plan. The realization that their journey was interwoven with the journeys of others brought a deep sense of responsibility and purpose. This moment of spiritual awakening was about more than just insight. It was about emotional healing as well. As the Chosen One traveled deeper into the higher realms, they began to feel the weight of past emotions lifting. Fear, shame, and trauma emotions that had once held them captive began to break apart, dissolving in the presence of divine wisdom. Each layer of emotional baggage that had been carried for so long was being removed, replaced with a sense of freedom and lightness. The healing wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual as well. The Chosen One could feel the weight of past wounds being healed in an instant. Memories of past pain, of betrayals and losses that had haunted them for years, began to fade away as the divine light of wisdom and healing poured into their soul. What once felt like unhealable scars began to fade, replaced with a renewed sense of strength and purpose. As the Chosen One continued this journey through higher dimensions, the clarity they gained wasn't just about the path ahead. It was about understanding their true self, the person they had always been beneath the layers of fear, doubt, and self-limiting beliefs. The truth of who they were, who they had always been, began to emerge. They saw themselves not as they had been told they were, or how they had perceived themselves in the past, but as the divine creation they truly were, a being of light, of purpose, and of limitless potential. And in this moment of spiritual awakening, the Chosen One realized that they were not alone. They were surrounded by a host of divine beings, angels, guides, and ancestors, each offering their support, their love, and their wisdom. These divine allies had always been with them, even in the darkest moments, guiding them, protecting them, and preparing them for this very moment of awakening. The Chosen One felt deeply connected to this divine family, knowing that they were not alone in this journey. As the Chosen One ventured deeper into the higher realms, the sensation of spiritual travel intensified. They were no longer confined to the limitations of the physical world. The boundaries between body and soul had dissolved, leaving only an expansive sense of freedom. Their soul was now free to explore the dimensions of reality that existed beyond their senses. It was a space where time felt irrelevant, where past, present, and future were not separate, but woven together into a single, unified experience. The air around them shimmered with a subtle energy, an ancient, divine force that seemed to vibrate with the rhythm of the universe itself. They felt a sense of connection to everything around them, every star, every planet, every being. It was as though they were part of the very fabric of creation, each breath a divine heartbeat that reverberated through the cosmos. In this space, the Chosen One was no longer just an individual. They were a vessel of divine energy, linked to the entire universe. The clarity that had eluded them in the waking world now flooded their consciousness. Each question they had ever asked, each doubt that had once clouded their mind, began to fade away as the truth of their existence unfolded before them. It was here, in the depths of the divine dimensions, that the Chosen One began to receive profound divine knowledge. This wisdom was not new, not foreign. It was ancient, timeless, and had always existed within them. It was the truth of who they truly were, more than just a physical being, but a spiritual entity with a purpose and mission far beyond what they had ever imagined. They saw, in a flash of clarity, the path that had led them to this moment. The struggles, the trials, the pain, all of it had been part of the divine process, shaping them into the person they needed to become, to fulfill their greater purpose. The obstacles that had once seemed insurmountable were now seen for what they truly were, stepping stones that led them closer to their divine destiny. This realization was liberating. No longer were the challenges of the past a source of frustration or regret. They were seen in the light of divine wisdom, understood as essential lessons, as catalysts for the growth that had been necessary for this moment. The Chosen One now understood that everything had purpose. Every setback, every failure, every loss had been intricately woven into the divine plan, all leading them to the place they were now. But the wisdom didn't stop there. As the Chosen One continued to journey through these higher dimensions, they began to understand the interconnectedness of all things. Their journey wasn't just about personal growth, it was part of a much larger cosmic purpose. Every soul, every being, every event was interwoven with their own. They were part of a vast and intricate network, all moving toward the same ultimate truth. They were not alone in this journey. They were part of a divine collective, a unified whole that reached across time, space, and dimension. And in this moment of deep connection, the Chosen One experienced a profound shift in perspective. They saw their life not as a singular, isolated existence, but as a wave in an ocean, a ripple in the infinite sea of divine consciousness. They realized that their every thought, every action, every word had a resonance that reached far beyond their own life. The energy they emitted affected not only their own path but the paths of those around them, and indeed, the entire world. The Chosen One began to understand that they were not just receiving divine guidance for themselves, they were also being entrusted with it for a larger purpose. The wisdom they were receiving wasn't just to illuminate their own journey, it was to help illuminate the journey of others. They were being prepared to guide, to lead, and to share the divine wisdom they had received with those who would need it. This realization was both humbling and empowering. It was clear that the Chosen One's journey was part of something much bigger. It wasn't just about the manifestation of personal desires. It was about aligning with the divine plan and playing a role in the transformation of the collective consciousness. Every breakthrough they experienced, every bit of wisdom they gained, was part of a much greater process. A process that was unfolding at a global level. As the Chosen One continued to move through the spiritual dimensions, they encountered divine guides, beings of light that appeared to offer further wisdom and guidance. These guides were not physical beings but spiritual entities that transcended the limitations of time and space. They were ancient, wise, and compassionate, offering the Chosen One insights into the nature of the universe and the spiritual path they were now walking. One of the guides stepped forward, radiating a gentle, comforting light. The Chosen One could feel the energy of this being. It was warm, loving, and yet infinitely powerful. The guide spoke without words, transmitting knowledge directly into the Chosen One's consciousness. The message was simple, yet profound. You are never alone. The divine has always been with you. Every step of your journey has been guided. And now, as you awaken to this higher wisdom, you are being entrusted with more than just your personal journey. You are being entrusted with the collective journey. Your awakening is not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of all who cross your path. The Chosen One felt a deep sense of peace as the message resonated within them. They understood now that their life was not just about receiving divine blessings. It was about sharing those blessings with the world. They were being called to be a vessel of divine light, carrying the wisdom, the love, and the guidance they had received into the lives of others. It was in this moment that the Chosen One truly understood their divine purpose. They were not meant to keep the wisdom and guidance they were receiving to themselves. They were meant to share it, to be a beacon of hope and light in the world. They were not just receiving divine wisdom for their own growth, they were receiving it to help heal, uplift, and guide others. As the spiritual travel continued, the Chosen One began to see flashes of the future. These glimpses were not vague or abstract. They were clear, detailed visions of what was to come. They saw themselves walking through a new season of life, one filled with purpose, peace, and abundance. The future was not set in stone, but the Chosen One could see the possibilities. the paths that would open as they continued to walk in alignment with the divine. They also saw the lives they would touch, the people they would encounter, the relationships they would build, and the profound impact they would have. The wisdom they were gaining wasn't just for themselves, it was to uplift others, to guide them toward their own breakthroughs, and to help them see the divine potential within themselves. The spiritual travel was not over, but the insights were already beginning to take shape. The Chosen One now understood that they had been called for a greater purpose than they had ever imagined. This journey was not just about healing themselves, it was about healing the world around them, one person, one moment at a time. As they continued their journey through the higher realms, the Chosen One felt more at peace than ever before. The fear, the doubt, the confusion, all of it began to melt away. They were beginning to understand their true nature, their true purpose, and their place in the divine plan. They were awakening to the realization that their life was part of something far greater, and that the breakthrough they were experiencing was not just for them, but for the world. The Chosen One's journey had shifted, no longer confined to the physical realm, no longer bound by the limitations of the material world. They were now walking in alignment with a higher divine plan. The doors of the spiritual dimensions had opened to them, and with each passing day, they were growing in their ability to receive divine guidance, to tap into higher wisdom, and to understand the true nature of their existence. But there was more. The deeper they moved into this sacred space of spiritual awakening, the more they realized that their transformation was not just internal, it was tied to the very fabric of time itself. They were not just being transformed for the present moment. They were being prepared for the future, for the timeline that lay ahead. It wasn't long before the Chosen One began to experience something new, something profound: dreams. But these were not ordinary dreams. These were visions of the future, glimpses into the possibilities that lay ahead, showing them paths they had never considered before. In the quiet of sleep, the Chosen One's soul was traveling beyond the physical, reaching into the unseen realms of possibility, where the future was not set but open to be shaped by their choices. At first, the dreams were subtle, fleeting images and symbols that seemed to fade as soon as they woke. But soon, the dreams became clearer, more vivid, more profound. The Chosen One could see their future unfolding before them, not in a vague, distant way, but in real, tangible scenes. These dreams didn't just show them what was to come, they showed them why it would happen. Each vision was like a breadcrumb, leading them along the path of divine destiny. They saw themselves walking through doors they had never dared to open. They saw themselves stepping into opportunities they had once considered too far out of reach. They saw their relationships healing, their finances flourishing, their life aligning with the divine purpose they had longed for. These weren't just dreams, they were future timelines, unfolding in real time, offering a glimpse into the life the Chosen One was meant to live. It was in these dreams that the Chosen One began to understand the importance of their choices. They could see the consequences of each decision they made. The paths they chose would not only affect their own life but would ripple out, touching the lives of others in ways they couldn't fully comprehend. They were not walking alone on this journey. They were part of a much greater plan, a plan that required them to step into their divine power and make choices that aligned with the higher purpose God had set for them. In the stillness of the night, when the world was asleep, the Chosen One was given access to the mysteries of the universe. In the dream state, they could travel through time itself. They saw their past, the experiences, the challenges, the mistakes, and how they had shaped who they were today. But they also saw their future, the paths they would walk, the relationships they would build, the impact they would have on the world. These dreams were not just about glimpses into the future. They were about understanding timelines, the connection between past, present, and future. The Chosen One began to see that their life was not a linear journey, but a series of intersecting timelines, all of which were connected through divine alignment. The decisions they made today would affect their future, but they also had the power to change the timeline, to shift the course of their journey, simply by aligning with the divine will. This realization was both liberating and daunting. It meant that the Chosen One had the power to shape their future, to align their choices with the higher purpose they had been given. But it also meant that they were responsible for how they moved forward. Every decision mattered. Every thought, every action, every intention carried weight in shaping the path ahead. The Chosen One knew they could no longer live in uncertainty. They had been given a glimpse into their potential, but now it was up to them to step into it. The dreams had shown them the possibilities, the future that was waiting for them. But they also understood that the timeline was not fixed. They were not locked into a predetermined path. They had the power to change it, to align it with God's will, and to manifest the desires that had been placed in their heart. Each dream became a tool, a guide to help the Chosen One navigate the path ahead. They began to understand that dreams were not just messages from the subconscious, but divine downloads from the higher realms, offering clarity, guidance, and direction. These were the spiritual tools they needed to align with their true purpose and step into the transformation that was unfolding. It wasn't just about the dreams themselves. It was about how the Chosen One responded to them. The more they trusted the divine wisdom in their dreams, the more they aligned with the greater plan. Each dream was a piece of the puzzle, showing them where to go next, what to do, and how to trust the process. As they woke each morning, they carried the wisdom of the night with them, stepping forward with greater clarity and purpose. But the dreams were not just about personal growth. They were part of a greater divine alignment. The Chosen One began to realize that the timeline they were walking was interconnected with the lives of others. Their choices were not just impacting their own life, they were affecting the collective. Every action they took, every decision they made, was creating ripples that would touch the lives of others, whether directly or indirectly. This was the heart of divine alignment, understanding that their journey was part of a greater cosmic plan. It was not just about manifesting their desires. It was about aligning with God's will and stepping into the divine flow that connected all things. Their life, their choices, their future was intertwined with the lives of others, and the choices they made would have a profound effect on the world around them. The Chosen One realized that this was a sacred responsibility. They had been entrusted with divine wisdom, with the power to shape their future, but also with the responsibility to walk in alignment with the divine plan, to be a light in the world, and to guide others along the path. It wasn't about achieving personal success for the sake of success. It was about living in alignment with the greater good, fulfilling their divine purpose, and using the wisdom they had gained to help others do the same. The dreams, the visions, the guidance, they were all tools to help them stay on course and remain aligned with God's will. As the Chosen One began to understand the deeper wisdom contained within their dreams, something powerful started to shift within them. Each dream, each vision, was no longer just a fragment of unconscious thought. It had become a message, a guiding light to lead them through the maze of life. The more they listened to these divine downloads, the more they recognized that they were not just passive recipients of spiritual insight, they were co-creators of their future, actively participating in the unfolding of divine timing. The dreams continued to reveal the layers of their future, but now they began to see more than just the path ahead. They saw the consequences of their choices, the way small, seemingly insignificant decisions could ripple through time, shaping their life in ways they had never expected. The timeline of their life was no longer a linear path, it was an intricate web of possibilities, all shaped by the choices they made in the present moment. For the first time, the Chosen One realized the power they had within them. Each decision they made was not just affecting their own life, but the lives of others as well. The energy they emanated, the thoughts they nurtured, the intentions they set was influencing the universe in ways they could not yet fully comprehend. They had always been told that their actions had consequences, but now, in this awakened state, they began to understand just how deeply interconnected their life was with everything around them. This was where divine alignment became essential. The Chosen One knew that they could no longer just move through life on autopilot. They had to consciously align every part of their being, mind, body, and spirit, with the higher purpose they had been given. They had to align with the divine flow of the universe, trusting that everything that was meant for them would unfold at the perfect time, and that every decision they made had the potential to move them closer to their true destiny. It wasn't just about manifesting their desires. It wasn't just about getting what they wanted. It was about trusting the process of divine unfolding and recognizing that God's timing was perfect, even when it didn't align with their own. The chosen one began to see that there was a divine purpose in every step they took, whether it felt difficult, easy, joyful, or painful. Every moment was part of the larger divine plan, and they were being guided every step of the way. The clarity the chosen one had gained from their dreams began to influence their everyday life. They started to see the world with new eyes, not through the lens of fear or doubt, but through the lens of possibility. They knew that they had the power to shape their future, but they also understood that they couldn't control everything. Some things were meant to unfold on their own, in God's perfect timing. There was a quiet peace in this realization. It was no longer necessary to worry about the outcome of every decision. The chosen one had learned to trust in divine alignment, knowing that every action they took, every prayer they offered, every step they made was part of the divine plan. It wasn't about forcing the future into place. It was about trusting the divine timing and allowing themselves to move with the flow of the universe. But this didn't mean that the chosen one was passive. Far from it. They still had a crucial role to play. Faith was the bridge between where they were and where they were going. By aligning with divine timing, they were stepping into their divine purpose, taking action with the guidance they had received. And the more they aligned with this purpose, the more they began to see the manifestations of their dreams take shape. The power of divine alignment was not just about the individual's life. It was about impacting the collective. As the chosen one stepped into alignment with their true purpose, they began to see how their transformation impacted the lives of those around them. The blessings they had received were not just for them to hoard. They were meant to be shared, to flow outward, creating a ripple effect of transformation in the lives of others. Each small change they made within themselves, each release of doubt, each increase in faith was like a pebble dropped into a pond, sending out ripples of divine energy into the world. They understood now that their personal growth was not just for their benefit. It was part of a greater plan, a plan that would touch others, inspire others, and create a divine chain of transformation. But with this knowledge came responsibility. The chosen one had been entrusted with a powerful gift, the ability to align with the divine flow, to manifest their desires, and to create a life that was in harmony with God's will. This gift was not to be taken lightly. It was a sacred responsibility, one that would require ongoing faith, trust, and alignment. They began to understand that their purpose wasn't just about achieving personal success or manifesting individual desires. It was about using their newfound wisdom and power to serve others, to help bring about transformation in the lives of those around them. This was not just their own journey. It was a collective journey. Every breakthrough they experienced, every step forward they took, was part of a larger movement that was unfolding in the world. As the chosen one embraced this responsibility, they knew that they had to stay grounded in faith. They had to continue to trust in the divine flow, even when things didn't make sense, even when the path ahead seemed unclear. They had to surrender to the greater plan, knowing that every decision, every choice, every action was part of the divine alignment that would lead them to their ultimate purpose. The more the chosen one aligned with their true purpose, the more they saw unexpected blessings begin to flow into their life. Financial provision, opportunities for growth, and relationships that had once seemed distant or unattainable began to fall into place. It wasn't because they had forced these things into existence. It was because they had aligned with the divine will, and the universe had responded in kind. The blessings didn't just come in the form of material success. They came in the form of inner peace, clarity, and a sense of fulfillment that went beyond anything the chosen one had ever imagined. The more they aligned with God's plan, the more they began to feel a deep, abiding sense of joy and contentment. The kind of peace that comes from knowing that they were walking in alignment with their true purpose. And with each new blessing, the chosen one felt the call to give back. They knew that their journey wasn't just about them. It was about serving others, helping others step into their own divine alignment, and guiding them toward their own breakthroughs. The chosen one had been blessed, and now they were called to be a blessing to others. As the chosen one continued their spiritual journey, a new, profound sense of peace began to settle within their spirit. The transformation they had experienced up until this point was remarkable, but it was nothing compared to what was about to unfold. The breakthrough that had been prophesied was not a distant event, it was now, and it was unfolding in real time. It was the stillness of the night that brought the deepest revelations. When the world around them was quiet, and all distractions faded away, God's voice became clearer. In the silence, the chosen one could hear the whispers of divine wisdom, the echoes of the divine plan, unfolding in perfect harmony. The breakthrough they had been waiting for was not just about the external world shifting. It was about the divine restoration that was taking place in their heart, mind, and spirit. For years, the chosen one had carried burdens, emotional weight from past traumas, disappointments from dreams unfulfilled, and the scars of battles fought alone. These burdens, though unseen, had shaped their experiences and limited their ability to fully embrace the future. The restoration God was offering was not just a healing of the body but a healing of the soul, a deep and profound process of returning them to their wholeness. As the stillness of the night deepened, the chosen one began to feel the divine presence surrounding them. It was a presence of profound love and healing. God's grace flowed over them like a river, washing away the pain, the fear, the doubt, and the shame that had accumulated over the years. Every part of their being, every fiber of their soul, began to feel lighter, freer, as if the weight of their past had been lifted. In this moment of divine restoration, the chosen one understood that this was not just about personal healing. It was about becoming whole again, becoming the person God had always intended for them to be. With each breath, they could feel the emotional chains that had held them captive for so long breaking. The chains of fear, self-doubt, shame, and guilt. The chains that had kept them from fully embracing their divine purpose were now crumbling away. The burden of their past no longer had the same hold over them. They were free. The divine restoration wasn't a gradual process. It didn't take days or weeks to unfold. It happened instantly. One moment, the chosen one felt the weight of their emotional baggage, and the next, they felt light, renewed, as if they had been completely transformed from the inside out. This was not the slow healing that so often came from time and patience. This was the kind of restoration that only God could bring, immediate, powerful, and complete. In this moment of profound healing, the chosen one was reminded of their true identity. They weren't just someone who had faced hardship. They weren't just someone who had been through trials. They were God's beloved, chosen, loved, and empowered for a purpose greater than they had ever realized. Every hardship they had faced, every trial they had endured, had been part of the divine process to prepare them for this moment. Now, they were ready, and as they stood in the stillness of the night, the chosen one felt something shift deep within. It was as if the very fabric of their being had been realigned with the divine. They were no longer just waiting for their breakthrough to arrive. They were stepping into their breakthrough. They were being restored to a place of divine wholeness, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But restoration wasn't the only thing happening in this sacred moment. The chosen one was also receiving a divine revelation. They could feel the wisdom of the universe flowing into their consciousness, flooding their heart with clarity and understanding. This wasn't just a revelation about their future, it was a revelation about who they were meant to be, about the power that had always existed within them, but that they had not fully realized until now. As the chosen one opened their heart to the divine flow of wisdom, they began to see their life in a new light. They understood that they had been given a divine purpose, one that extended beyond their own personal desires or goals. They were not meant to simply live for themselves. They were meant to be a light, to be a guide for others, to help lead others on the same path of healing and transformation that they had walked. God's revelation was clear. This breakthrough was not just for the chosen one, it was for the world around them. The healing they had received was not just for personal growth, it was a preparation for the role they would play in the lives of others. The chosen one had been entrusted with wisdom and spiritual power, not to hoard it for themselves, but to share it with those who would need it. They were being restored not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of the greater good. As the revelation unfolded, the chosen one saw their future with new clarity. They could see how their life's work, their purpose, would unfold. The healing they had experienced was the first step in a greater transformation, not just in their own life, but in the lives of others. They understood that their journey was part of something larger, part of the divine plan that was unfolding in the world. In that quiet moment, they also realized that this divine restoration was just the beginning. What was happening in their heart, in their soul, was part of a much larger cosmic reset, a reset that would impact the world in ways they could not yet fully grasp. The breakthrough that was coming was not just about receiving material blessings or personal success, it was about stepping into a divine alignment with the universe, aligning themselves with the flow of God's will, and trusting that they were walking the path they were always meant to walk. This wasn't just a personal journey anymore. It was part of a greater divine unfolding, a cosmic dance that they were now fully aligned with. In this moment of restoration, the chosen one felt a surge of strength and purpose flood their spirit. The weight of their past, the pain of their struggles, the doubt that had once clouded their mind, it all faded away. They were being reborn. They were being restored to their true essence, the essence that had always been there, waiting for the right moment to shine. And now, the time had come. The breakthrough wasn't just about personal gain, it was about being restored to their true divine nature, stepping into their full power, and walking into their divine purpose. The road ahead was not without challenges, but now, with the power of divine restoration and revelation, the chosen one was ready to face whatever came next. As the divine restoration continued to unfold within the chosen one, the realization became clearer with every passing moment. This was not just an ending. It was the beginning of something monumental. The spiritual journey they had embarked on had led them here, to this moment of profound transformation. They had been restored, healed, and revealed. But now it was time for the final breakthrough to take place. The stillness of the night deepened. The quiet, sacred space that had been created for healing now became a place for divine strategy. God was not only healing the chosen one but was now equipping them for the next season. In the silence, divine downloads began to flood their consciousness. These were not just random thoughts or fleeting ideas. They were profound, divine strategies, whispered into the soul with a clarity that could not be denied. Each idea, each vision, carried with it a sense of divine purpose, a roadmap for the future that was being revealed. The breakthrough was not just a moment of spiritual awakening or personal healing. It was a divine call to action, a call to step forward into the fullness of their purpose. God was giving the chosen one the tools they needed to walk this new path with confidence, authority, and a deep trust in divine timing. The divine download wasn't just about personal growth, it was about shifting the world around them. The chosen one began to receive visions of what their life could look like in the near future. They saw themselves standing in a place of leadership, guiding others who were walking the same path they had once walked. They saw themselves bringing light to the lost, hope to the hopeless, and faith to those who had none. This was their divine mission to serve, to share the wisdom they had gained, and to guide others toward the same transformation they had experienced. But this wasn't just about spiritual insight. It was about practical strategies for action. God wasn't just telling them what would come. He was showing them how to prepare for it, how to take the wisdom they had gained in the quiet of the night and use it to create real change in the world. It was a divine invitation to step into their power, to take the lessons of their healing and use them as a catalyst for growth, not just for themselves but for those around them. The Chosen One began to feel the power of the divine revelations that had been imparted to them. They had received spiritual wisdom, yes, but they were now being equipped with the tools to act on that wisdom. They were being shown how to align their external world with the inner transformation that had taken place. The divine strategies were unfolding piece by piece, like a map that was guiding them toward a destination they had never even dreamed possible. God had equipped them with everything they needed. The breakthrough wasn't just about receiving, it was about manifesting the transformation. The Chosen One had been restored, yes, but they were now being called to step forward and create. Their breakthrough was not just a personal victory, it was a divine calling to take their place in the world, to lead others, to share their wisdom, and to bring about change. The divine strategy revealed a clear path. The Chosen One understood that the steps they were about to take were not just ordinary actions, they were divinely ordained steps, each one leading them toward the fulfillment of their true purpose. The road ahead would not be without challenges, but with each step, they would be empowered by the divine strength they had received. With this newfound understanding, the Chosen One felt an overwhelming sense of confidence. The fear, the uncertainty, the hesitation that had once held them back now seemed distant. They could see clearly, with a heart full of purpose and determination, that the breakthrough was not just about the blessings they would receive, it was about the impact they would have. They were being called to make a difference in the lives of others, to lead them into their own divine alignment, to help them manifest their breakthroughs and heal as the Chosen One had healed. The divine revelation brought with it a vision of the future, a future where the Chosen One was not just an observer of the divine flow, but an active participant in it. They saw themselves using their newly restored wisdom to teach others, to offer guidance, to be a mentor, a leader, a light in the darkness. They saw themselves empowering others, helping them find their own path, their own breakthrough, just as the Chosen One had found theirs. This vision of the future was not just about external success, it was about spiritual fulfillment, about using their gifts to serve others and align with the divine will. The Chosen One could see how their life's work would be intertwined with the lives of those they touched, how their purpose would be fulfilled through service, and how the divine blessings they received would multiply and flow into the lives of others. The spiritual downloads continued, and the Chosen One could feel the weight of them, but also the lightness. Each new piece of wisdom came with a sense of clarity, and with each new insight, the path ahead became clearer. It wasn't a matter of forcing things into place. It was about trusting the process, trusting God's timing, and walking forward with the confidence that the universe, in its divine order, would unfold as it was meant to. The final breakthrough was not a distant event, but a present reality that the Chosen One was being prepared to step into. They were already living in the manifestation of it, in the unfolding of it, and now, with the spiritual restoration complete, they were ready to step into the fullness of their divine purpose. Every part of their being was in alignment, and the divine flow of the universe was leading them forward. It was a beautiful unfolding, and it was just the beginning. Thank you so much for joining us on this divine journey today. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We want to keep spreading these life-changing insights to those who need it the most. Your support helps us reach more people, and together, we can create a wave of transformation that will ripple across the world. If you're ready to embrace the transformation that's unfolding in your life, let us know in the comments below. Remember, your breakthrough is coming, and we're here to walk with you every step of the way. Stay aligned, stay faith-filled, and see you in the next video.